My name's Emil. I'm a digital strategist and I answer marketing questions. Today's episode 27, and it's about tracking new audiences by site activity. And this question is from Reddit, from Fundraiser Ninja. Is it possible to create a custom audience of people as per the bounce rate, page depth, and time spent on page? Apologies if this is a noob question. Please direct me where I can learn this. Absolutely not a noob question. This is actually a complicated question, but I'm going to try to answer it as concisely as humanly possible. So in this video, I'm going to do like a Google Tag Manager crash course, thinking brick and mortar and how having that mentality could help track the right events, and then assessing the next steps. But first, every Sunday I send out one email that recaps all the marketing questions I answered that week. If you want to stay up to date on best practices, strategies, and become an overall stronger marketer, I think you would really enjoy this recap. It would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to the newsletter and my YouTube channel. Now, back to the answer. Tracking is the lifeblood of success online, and accurate tracking is very hard to do if you don't have the right fundamentals down. So in here, what I want to do is talk about the tool that Google gives you absolutely free, while it steals your data, to help you cope with this. So the tool is called Google Tag Manager. I'm sure you know about it, and I'm sure somebody's recommended it, or you might be even using it. But I find a lot of confusion around Google Tag Manager. So what I want to do is I want to jump into my Google Tag Manager and my analytics and show you how to set up exactly what you're looking for. So in Google Tag Manager, really the core essential thing to remember about it is it's set up in two direct tabs to worry about. First is tags and then triggers. Tags are the things that you're tracking. It's simple as that. If you're tracking time on page, if you're tracking bounce rate, if you're anything you want to track happens with a tag. That's the thing that we're tracking. The trigger lets it know when we should start initiating that tracking parameter. Give you a great example. There's a button on your page that says buy now. Well, if somebody clicks that buy now button, that's a tag. That's the thing we're tracking. But to make sure that we trigger that thing, we have to tell the trigger that anything that has the word buy now in it that somebody clicks, issue a tag. And then we tell it what we want to do with that. Let's break down your three questions. Let's talk about first page depth. Page depth is an interesting one. Let's go to my website. And my website, I have a really long website homepage here. And sometimes I like to know where people are in their journey. So let's say we'll take this tool right here. And I want anybody who goes right here. What am I reviewing in analytics? So that's under career momentum. So this ID is career momentum. And if I go to Google Tag Manager, I can go to a trigger and I could say, hey, look. Let's set up a new trigger, and the trigger is when somebody gets to an element, right? An element visibility. And that ID, which is the exact thing that we're talking about here, my ID, when the ID element is career momentum, and it's 100% visible, set that as a trigger. So we can call this career momentum and hit save. So now that we have that tracked, career momentum tracked, now we can go to tags and we can set up a new tag. And the tag that I want to initiate is, let's call it universal. We want to do an event. And here in the event, we're going to call this event category percentage viewed. And the let's call it, let's be more specific for your issue. Let's say we'll call it X element. You can name it whatever it is. Action, viewed, and then label could be section. You can do anything you want, and value I'll leave it go, and then you just connect your Google Analytics account, and then the trigger is going to be career momentum. So now when somebody goes to and scrolls to, and that part of my website becomes visible in their browser, it's going to trigger an event in Google Analytics. I can now use that event type to segment audiences in Google Analytics. I don't need this, so I'm going to exit out of this, discard changes. Here's another one, how long people are on your page. I already have that set up with a trigger right here. So if you go to this trigger and you see that Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, I have an event, time, 45-second view. And what I have is a timer. And all I did was set a timer on the page that anytime somebody goes to landing page GA, if they stay on for 45 seconds, it's going to have a view rate that somebody was on there absorbing the information. And then lastly, if you go into Google Analytics, and you go to, I'll walk you through this from this section, settings, and you say, hey, I want to track certain things that are happening on this page. I want to build audiences in here. If you scroll down to the bottom in the middle section, we have audiences. And we can create a new audience. And now, if we have those events triggered off in Google Tag Manager, we can add them here. And we can also have create new audiences right in here, depending on how they act. So we got demographics, technology, behavior is the one you want. So sessions is equals 1. That will mean that a single session happened. Or we can go to how many page views, or there's so many different things that you can do. The imagination is the limiting factor here, but you need to have Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics, and they need to be interconnected on your website. And this is just a crash course in how I approach it and how I set up event behaviors or any sort of real in-depth tracking. But the most important thing to remember is who's in this group and why you're creating it. One of the things that happens time and time again is you create too much tracking. And I don't mean you specifically, but I mean in general, I see too much tracking. If you think about it as a brick and mortar, let's talk about a clothing store, and it's in a nice part of town, and they sell a varied amount of clothing. And think about your website as a storefront. And if somebody comes into that storefront, what are the things we want to track? We want to track that somebody's there. That, by default, page views exist. Then we want to track where they go. Well, we're tracking that with Google Analytics, where they travel. But we also want to travel how long they're on the page. Because how long somebody's in your store is a good determination of how interested they are. You've been in that situation where you walk, do a quick loop around the store, nothing for you, and you bolt. And you've also had those other ones where you pull a lot of stuff in your hands, you're trying to carry it around, you're looking for specials. So think about your website in the sense of brick and mortar, and then just use pen and paper and say, these are the things that are valuable and these are things that are not valuable. Bounce rate is a great example. You want to have people who have X percentage of bounce rate, who've been on a certain page for X amount of time. That's a great tracking parameter. But then think about, what are you going to do with that information? If it's just to understand that audience, that's one. But if you have very specific tasks that you're looking at that audience to do, then you want to maybe sync up your Google ads. You always want to sync Google ads, but you want to sync Google ads into there as well and create remarketing lists based on those users. Or you might want to create a profile of people who visit to the site that you exclude because you're running a lot of traffic ads, and you want to get rid of that data and you want to focus on the people who are interested and create those audiences. There's a plethora of things you can do. So it's important to remember what you're tracking and why you're tracking it, and it should be succinct, and you should have a very direct reason. This will avoid a lot of issues. Now, there's a YouTube channel called Measure School, and they have courses on using Google Tag Manager and advanced tracking. I absolutely recommend them, and that's the destination I would go. Measure School is absolutely amazing. So I hope this got you on the right track. I hope it was clear enough to give you some starting point. By no means was this an absolute tutorial. And if it was helpful, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe below. I answer marketing questions every single day. And as always, good luck and happy marketing.